And welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Bubba and the Bloom, episode 115. Going to continue our ADP analysis, going 250 to 300 according to NFBC, OC, ADP, and probably much, much more. You guys crushed it with a listener question, so we'll get to all of those as well. And whoever's in the chat, come join us and have some fun. You can find me on Twitter at BDentric, the podcast at Bubba Bloom Pod, and my co-host, as always, on Twitter at RyanBHQ. Ryan Bloomfield, how are we doing, my friend?
We're fantastic, man. Won't be as electric of an episode, I don't think, as our Tout Wars one. At least for me, I get to start in the basement as opposed to last time. But appreciate everyone who hung out during Tout Wars. I thought that was a ton of fun. Yeah. And yeah, we had I think throughout on YouTube, we had roughly 80 people just there the whole time for our little draft. So appreciate it. Appreciate the chat also teaching you how to. A little spelling lesson.
PFAADT.
In the middle of the little bit of spelling class in the middle of the draft, so that was also good too.
Yep. Yeah. Appreciate you all. It's pretty awesome. I will say I recorded with Pollock earlier, and someone's question was, "Can you talk about FAGHT?" And they spelled it FAAGHT just for fun. So I'm like, you guys are great. Love y'all. The best. So
we always text our listeners are the best, and it's good to see you be on the brunt end of these comments, as opposed to traditionally it's been me, because I guess because Labor is the first draft we stream and you're not in it, so
I'm just an innocent bystander in that one.
Yeah, and egging them on. It was good to see the tables turned and see the chat go after you.
Yeah, it was fun. Can't wait to do it again. We might have a few more, at least one more, maybe more streams coming your way. Who knows? We'll see. So looking forward to that, and we'll definitely have some fun along the way. To get there, again, we're talking ADP 250 to 300 tonight. We really don't have any other news to talk about really else, so we can kind of dive right on into this Bloomfield if you'd like. So I don't know if you have your handy-dandy there it is. He's on top of it.
Of course I do. Come on.
He's got his screen ready. So let's start on the hitter side of things, Bloomfield. What are some of the takeaways you're seeing?
On the hitter side, it's, yes, as you would expect, starting to get ugly. Actually, unlike the last episode or two, I'm flipping, I think, back over to pitchers in this pocket. It just seems like I know for sure when we did our ADP 200 to 250, I mentioned how I wasn't really that much of a fan of the starting pitcher side, and there's still forget about closers at this point. I found myself liking more pitching here, which kind of makes sense, and we'll talk about some of the guys as we go. In draft so far, for me at least, is filling out kind of the end of my rotation. I'm taking a lot of these types of guys, more than the bats that we're seeing on the left side. So and again, for the YouTube crowd, for the live streamers watching the video, we've got the normal ATC projections. It's all color coded. I see a lot less balance on the hitter side. You've got and far less speed, and the speed that we do have, it comes at a total price. You've got Whit Merrifield as a playing time risk at 17 bags. There's only a couple other guys projected for more than 15. Will Benson playing time risk. Jose Siri's going to hit 220. There's just a lot of warts with pretty much all these bats, as you would expect, in 250 to 300.
Yeah, I'm with you. There's a handful of bats, literally a handful. I wouldn't go much past that I've seen myself drafting here. So I'm with you. It's probably more of a pitching world at this point, because also when we do next Tuesday's show, when we do ADP 300 through 400, the pitching really falls off. This is kind of the last hurrah. It feels like there might be a straggler here or there. So you get your final bats later. If you are taking bats, though, there's a couple corner infielders potentially of interest here. There's some outfielders later on in this pocket here. Other than that, though, it's literally kind of, I guess, pick your poison if you need a bat. Hopefully you don't, like you said. So there are some 20 home run guys. I'll say that much. If you're looking for that, which we were kind of struggling for power recently, but other than that, averages are all pretty rough. Not a ton of steals, as you mentioned. So it's definitely team specific at this point, which you'd expect at this point in the draft, but it's even more so here. You're not just saying, "Oh, I want this guy from my bench." That's probably not happening. This is really to probably fill out your roster, take your bench shots later on.
And I think, like, yeah, just to add a little bit more onto that, this is the part of ADP. This is the part of the draft where I at least start to flip over from wanting to get safe bats that compile playing time to now we are getting towards, I mean, in a 12-teamer, pick 300 is, if I can do math, the 25th round. So you're starting to get to the end of your roster. I'm starting to flip that mindset on the hitting side of trying to compile plate appearances and making sure I have enough playing time to taking more of those, I call them the binary decision at the end of a draft, where if you're drafting now, you want that hitter to either be an easy cut, or if they get a job or whatever, then you roll with them. And so this is the part of the draft where, at least for me, I'm starting to make that transition from safety to more like just taking shots on guys. And it's late enough if that shot doesn't work out, like a Colt Keith, for example, it's okay to kind of just cut and get a replacement from the waiver wire, which may not be that much worse than some of the guys we're going to talk about.
And the last thing I'll say, at least on the hitter side of this, we are talking 12 teams, but if you are doing 15s, there are definitely some viable, because there are playing time guys here. It's not great, but in 15s, that's what you want. Like, we'll talk about some of these guys throughout our ADP debates and whatnot. So in a 15, there are going to be guys here, but again, like Ryan said, in a 12, there's an occasional guy I've targeted here, but nothing I'm running home to be all excited about. It's more like I probably screwed up somewhere earlier in my draft, and I just need to kind of fill out some spots and pray. Is what it comes down to. On the pitching side, Ryan, what are you kind of noticing here? Because before we go any farther, this is color coded based on this range, correct?
Yeah. So like a green, let's see, Edward Cabrera's whip is certainly not green, but Edward Cabrera's 4.05 projected ERA is green. And so that means it's good relative to the other pocket.
Okay, perfect.
So relative to this pocket, I should say.
Yeah, so like I was seeing like 107 Ks by Paddock is a little green still. I'm like, yeah, that ain't gonna cut it, homie. But yeah, it makes sense. So what are you seeing on the pitching side of this when you're checking it out?
I mean, I'm seeing some of my guys. I'm seeing a MacKenzie Gore. I'm seeing a Griffin Canning. I'm seeing a Chris Paddock. I'm seeing a Lodolo, a Varland. Kind of mentioned it earlier, but these are some pitchers I like, and these are a lot of times my SP 7, 8, 9.
Yep.
That I'm filling out that rotation with. On the closer side, it's not much, man. There are 4 guys projected for more than 10 saves. Projecting saves at this point of the draft is very difficult. Those 4 guys are Hunter Harvey, Yuki Matsui, Will Smith of the Royals, and Robert Stevenson, the injured Robert Stevenson. And so I say closers, but like I think a lot of these save projections, which are 13 or 14, basically for all these guys, is just a hedge that they're a 50-50 shot to get the closer role at some point in the season. So like that's where Hunter Harvey's at. Yuki Matsui, I mean, I think Robert Suarez is probably the guy in San Diego. Will Smith in Kansas City, it seems like a matchup-based 9th inning. We'll see. And again, Robertson is not the closer for LA or for Anaheim, at least to start the season. So there are 4 relievers, I should say, not closers. And if you grab one of them, it's more of like a speculative dart throw than trying to plan for saves here.
And if you are drafting in 12s right now, these are fun guys to take, because you'll know by this opening day who has the role, and they're easy fab drops at the same time.
Yep.
You never know. Say something happens with the other closer, or they pitch better and the manager changes their mind, or more news comes out, whatever, and they become the closer. Well, now you're gravy as well. So there are strategies behind that, at least. But like Ryan said, most of these guys are not the closer right now, or at least they're in like a probably more of a 70-30, 60-40 committee. And that's why they have like half the team saves. So.
I feel like if you take a shot on any closer here, I love how we're just randomly starting with closer strategy, but hey, it's better than catcher strategy to start.
I bit my tongue, so you're welcome.
I'm proud of you. If there was one reliever out of those 4 that I mentioned, I'd take Hunter Harvey here, just 100%. Because I think there's the best chance of him being named the closer or not. Like, I think Matsui, it'll be a save share. Will Smith, it'll be a save share. And Stevenson to start out won't. We do have our friend The Knob in the chat. And again, let's keep the chat going. Any questions throughout, we will answer them on the show. Says Robert Stevenson, supposed to be good to go for opening day. I don't think he becomes a closer anyway. I agree, at least to start this season. But yeah, if you're taking a save spec, I think Hunter Harvey's the guy at a 271 ADP. It's either him or Finnegan. So,
yep, I'm with you. And then the other thing you mentioned, there are a lot of starters, like you said, that I have drafted. Let's put it that way, or I could easily see myself wanting to draft in this range. And when we do our targets and fades later on, you're going to see a lot more pitchers on this episode than other ones. So that'll be kind of a giveaway on what we're looking for here. So it'll be interesting. This is kind of the end game. We're going to do 300 to 400 next week, and a 12 team. It's 360. So we're getting close. So the next week's episode is literally your bench and you're taking shots is what it comes down to. So this is the rounding out things for the most part, and we'll see where it goes from there. Any other final general takeaways before we start the ADP debates?
No, might be taking shots talking about the 300 plus group.
Hey, it'll be fun if the listeners come with the questions like they did tonight. We're gonna have a great show. Well, we're gonna have a great show anyways, but we're gonna have a great show. I can feel it already. All right, first ADP battle is yours, Mr. Bloomfield, and we have a menage on this one.
We do, and it's kind of a battle, but also just a call out, I think, to the depth of first base this year. Mm-hmm. We've got in this group at an ADP of 252, 255, and 262. We have Ryan Mountcastle, Anthony Rizzo, and Justin Turner, respectively. And I'm a big fan of all three, to be honest. And I think, in Tout Wars the other night, I think Rizzo is my starting first baseman, which wouldn't maybe go that extreme as a recommendation. But if you're filling out corner infield, there is this trio of first basemen that is available to you. I don't know who I like the most. I think I probably like Rizzo the most out of Mountcastle and Turner, just because I just think the pre-concussion and the track record and the park and the lineup, at least the top half of that lineup, is all in Anthony Rizzo's favor. You're taking a little bit of a hedge that Rizzo, and there is a risk that Rizzo just doesn't return to the player that he was. I mean, he's getting old anyway, but this stuff sometimes just doesn't go away. But I think there's a decent chance if Rizzo returns to the pre-concussion guy that we saw before he got hurt last season, I think there's like massive profit potential here. I think there's profit potential with Mountcastle and Turner as well, but I think it's just the most with Rizzo. But I'd be happy with all three. I don't know if you have a fade or a target within that group, but I like all three if you're gonna fill out your corner spot.
Yes, all three are very much in play. I prefer Rizzo for sure. I'm with you on this. I think we've talked about him a ton this draft season. I know we're not alone on that. It's like we shouldn't be alone on that, but we documented, the basically 2 months before the concussion, everything after the concussion. He's been cleared. Like there's so many levels to it that are very good for Rizzo. MLBplayingtime.com has him hitting cleanup versus righties, 6 versus lefty. That's really strong. If the Yankees lineup can even come back to close to what it once was, which, maybe we'll see. I think it will. I think most of us think they should, at least. So, yeah, I love Rizzo in that regard. I got Turner second in this one for the couple reasons. He should play pretty much every day. He's going to DH. He'll play first occasionally for Vladito. He can play third because, heck, they still need one in Toronto. And he can even play second base because they kind of still need one in Toronto. So he's going to get playing time all over. They've been very vocal about the second and third base part of it. And one thing I love about Turner for like team construction purposes, out of these three especially, he's going to hit for average. We talk about it over and over. We talk about it over and over again. The average thing. That's why Ryan talks Freddie Freeman until he's blue in the face, and he's not wrong. We talk about Michael Harris, like all these guys, and then like last episode, we talked about how average sucked like throughout pretty much the entire pocket of ADP. It's not great here either. It's not going to get any better the next podcast. That's just the reality of it. Justin Turner, like at worst, probably hits 275. Like at worst, hits 270. He's a guy that I wouldn't be shocked if he gets close to 300. Like that's just what he does. So I like Turner quite a bit for that regard. Power, 15, 20 homers, hopefully, in a perfect world. And then I got Mountcastle third. And the only reason I got him third is he has been proven to be somewhat affected by the dimensions in Baltimore. Not a ton, but somewhat. And it is well documented. Ryan O'Hearn will be a part of a platoon there. Like that is something that's going to happen. They've discussed it. It happened last year. Once Mountcastle got healthy enough as the season went on, they did play together sometimes versus righties. But if there was like anybody else that needed a day off, Mountcastle sat. That's just how it went down. So O'Hearn has earned the right to at least start the season in that kind of platoon. So that does not knock Mountcastle back just a bit. And that's probably why he's being drafted this late, honestly. But so Rizzo, Turner, Mountcastle from me.
That's a good point. I was going to say Mountcastle, since we haven't really talked about it. I was going to say he's the safest of the three, but I don't know. Yeah, given that playing time picture in Baltimore, I don't know if that's the case. So it's a good call.
Yeah, this is my only concern, and literally that could play itself out if Ryan O'Hearn returns back to the pumpkin he was before, or a lot of things could take place to change those factors. But entering the season as of now, O'Hearn will get his playing time. That's just the reality of the situation. We'll talk about Alex's question later.
Yeah, we'll talk about don't worry, Alex. Luis Rengifo is mentioned.
Yes.
And yes, we can't go a full episode without. We do have Scott in the chat, our golfing partner down at First Pitch, Arizona. Scott says, I just took Mountcastle and Turner in an auction when I whiffed on other first basemen. So
that's strong. That's strong. I think I got now that I'm thinking, I got Turner for like $1 in one of our auctions. That made me feel pretty $1 or $2 at least. The one I live streamed, I'm pretty sure I got for like $1 or $2. That was one of my more, I guess, favorite bids. Let's put it that way.
And he will get third eligibility as well.
I think he'll get third for sure. First, we'll see with Vlad. It depends on how much they get aggressive in that.
Well, regard. He is first. Oh,
already. Yeah, you're right. Sorry. So he'll get third, maybe sneaks in second. And if he could pull that trifecta off, we're sitting real pretty, folks. So especially in like your Yahoo leagues and whatnot, keep an eye on that situation. That could really open things up for you. I know I wanted him in tout the other night, and someone got him before me. So like I had him circled late, and someone grabbed him in that one. All right, my first battle: Brian De La Cruz versus MJ Melendez. De La Cruz has an ADP of 292, Melendez 294. We've kind of talked about these guys off and on, but De La Cruz, middle of the Miami order, hit 257 last year, 19 homers, 4 steals in his first full season. Pretty solid stuff. And then we know MJ Melendez. He struggled a bit last year, but he hit 235, 16 homers, 6 steals. So the averages are a bit different. Melendez let's see what Kerwin has real quick before I pass the mic off to you. But he was hitting leadoff a lot last year. We're hoping Garcia hits leadoff. I know Kerwin should have Garcia hitting leadoff. Yeah, he's got Garcia. So he's got Melendez hitting 5th and Melendez platooning against lefties, which would be interesting. So what's your thoughts with De La Cruz and MJ Melendez?
I'm not really thinking too hard about this. I'm going De La Cruz. I think he's just better than MJ Melendez. In the forecaster for Brian De La Cruz, we gave him an upside of 30 home runs with a 270 batting average. Again, that's not our projection. It's not our projection, but that's if things kind of break the right way, and if we see the skills continuing to trend the way they are. Brian De La Cruz had an 11% barrel rate in the second half and cut down on his strikeouts as the season went on. Like peak age, 27. And playing like pretty equal platoon splits, at least last season, playing every day in Miami. Not the best lineup, but again, I mean, we are very fine with good players on bad teams. So I'm going De La Cruz pretty easily over Melendez, actually.
Yeah, I have a lot of De La Cruz shares. Big fan of what De La Cruz has. So I have De La Cruz as well, but I will throw a little love Melendez's way. The dude did have a barrel rate of 11.4% and a hard hit rate of nearly 50% last year.
Yep.
So he does hit the baseball very, very well. It's just when he hits it well, it's obviously the results aren't quite there. A 10% home run, a fly ball, you'd hope for more, especially for a guy with almost a 44% fly ball rate. It's a heavy line drive rate. 20% line drive rate. So it's one of those things that people talk about is the line drive part's awesome because that's kind of a very, I don't say sticky is the right word, but it's good to see the line drive skills. Now, if you can tweak that just a bit type thing, what could happen? Who knows? So I'm not ready to write him off fully. The dude is going to be 25 years old this year. Not that old. I feel like he was learning a new position at times last year playing the outfield when he was a catcher, for crying out loud. So I'll give him a grain of salt on that one. I still take De La Cruz, but Melendez going this late, if you still need a fifth outfielder and say De La Cruz is gone or something, I have no problem taking a chance on Melendez because you can still replace him. Outfield in a 12-teamer, there will be a lot of outfielders that become available throughout the season. That's something you can do. So I don't mind taking a chance on Melendez that late at least.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
All right, who's your? That was a great vote of confidence. Who's your? Oh, okay. Real quick, I just saw the names we're talking about next. I don't even want to hear. Fair enough. Who are the next two we're debating? Real quick.
Well, no, man. I'm just trying to pick different. I'm trying to put our listeners in different situations that they might find themselves in at the draft table.
Or to not draft. Which one is it?
That's what we will have the verdict on in mere minutes, my friend. Let's we do this for the listeners. Yeah, so listener, true. You're at the draft table. You are at pick 288. You are looking for a starting pitcher with a ceiling who has been legitimately very good in the majors in the past. Some injury issues the last few years, starting to get a little bit older, but you do have the ability to draft James Paxton or Frankie Montas at this stage. Bubba's just shaking his head, so I'm guessing it's a battle. Someone has to win, or maybe they both get disqualified. I don't know. I just think it's interesting to see two guys who have been good in the majors in their career going this late. And was just kind of in prepping for the show, thinking who I would rather have. It's tough. The team context is Paxton by so much over Frankie Montas, pitching in LA, not having Great American Small Park, yada yada. Despite that, I think I still go Montas. Montas is, I think, 4 years younger than Paxton. Yes, age 31 season. And Montas is only 2 years removed, Bubba, from 187 inning season with 207 strikeouts with Oakland. That wasn't that long ago. And we have completely written off Frankie Montas. We, as in the market, at an ADP of whatever the hell I said, 288. I just think there's a chance if we open our eyes, and I have not drafted Frankie Montas yet, probably because Nick Lodolo's the pitcher who goes right after him. But it was just interesting in kind of bringing up names we haven't talked about on the pod that much during draft season. I figured I'd throw these two out there and, get dunked on by you. But I think Frankie Montas is actually worth a dart throw at this point in the draft. He's not that far off from being good. It was only 2 years ago.
It's a fair debate. I'm not going to deny that. I was chuckling because listening to you try to build up both players was
you like that? Should I go into marketing, or should
you should be a used car salesman right about now. It was pretty impressive. That's what I was chuckling about, because I knew you like Lodolo. We've talked about a handful of these guys in between, and I'm like, yeah, this is why we haven't drafted them yet. But to your question, because I do other podcasts and I've had to do a lot of these debates, and I get it. I always have to preface, if you had to take one of the two, that's how this debate works. Because I know some people probably say neither. I'm with you on Frankie Montas. Paxton was good until he wasn't last year because he got hurt again. That was the thing. He was really good for 4 or 5 starts. Then he got hurt again and just never really had it after that. Like you said, the context with the Dodgers is great. They have a lot of options there. At least they will eventually. So he has to basically survive until those options are there. And then maybe he goes to a Yarborough role in the bullpen. Who knows? I do like the idea of Montas. Now, like you said, Great American Small Park, not great. So the ratios might be a little dicey with Montas. The early spring stuff, again, still spring. It's nice to see the way he looks out there. He's kind of rekindling a little bit of the old Montas. And the difference between the two for me is even if Frankie gets Great American small parked a bit, he'll still have a good amount of strikeouts. Like he's going to have that over Paxton, it feels like. And barring any other rekindling of an injury, should throw 140, 150 innings pretty easily, I think. So those two things basically beat out Paxton for me. So if you want to take a chance, I think it is a good chance, actually. That's why it is a good discussion. God, I can't believe I said that.
Here we go. You guys heard it here first. Bubba, Frankie Montas guy.
Oh, you almost got me to say the word again. But no, if you want to take it, especially in 12s, this is where I like taking those chances. Like easy drop. If it doesn't work, these are the kind of things you can do in a 12 because there are going to be replaceable options on the waiver wire. Montas is one of those guys because if he somehow starts to rekindle even a real life SP3 as your SP9, that's valuable. That's very valuable. So I think there is something here because, as much as we talk Lodolo and he's kind of getting clearance, that's great. He's going right in front of Lance Lynn. What's the difference between Frankie Montas and Lance Lynn? Really? Really, that's a real conversation there.
Don't do Montas dirty like that.
But I'm just saying.
No, it's a good point. It's a good point. Yeah.
Like Chris Paddock, who everybody likes him. I don't know if we're talking about him later or not. They're going to try to slow play his innings. So why wouldn't you maybe take a chance on Montas instead? So it is a good point that you're making. Is what I'm saying is we shouldn't just be sleeping on Frankie Montas. So I'm with you on that.
We got Adam in the chat. Lodolo went in the 24th round versus Montas at the end of the 22nd in his online championship 12-team draft tonight. So just FYI.
That's online championship qualifier.
Yep, that's correct. So, I like Lodolo more, and the latest news is, and the reason I bring up Lodolo, I don't think we're talking about him later, but latest news on him seems at least somewhat.
Yeah, his ADP is going to, because I think he's going to potentially make his first. I think they're talking maybe bullpen in this weekend. First Cactus League start next Tuesday, Wednesday. I think is what I read. Maybe it's first Cactus League start this weekend. I can't remember. But regardless, once that comes out and we see video and he survived basically and he's healthy, if he does, well, because man, I'm still nervous. How is your leg still screwed up this long? It's bizarre. So if he can basically show he's bouncing back, that ADP is going to start creeping up quickly. So I think that conversation of the separation between the two is really going to happen. So good one, Bloomfield. I'll give it to you.
Thank you.
And we are going to talk Nick Lodolo because I have him up next.
Jesus! I should probably look at the show outline before we even.
Yeah, give me all the crap.
Sorry, man. Just stole your thunder.
No, you didn't. DL Hall versus Nick Lodolo. This is fun for me because the argument for Nick Lodolo is yes, if healthy, the dude's way better than this ADP. If you trust the health. Flip side, DL Hall, it seems like. People loved the early stuff. Then he gets traded to Milwaukee, where now he's locked into the rotation barring anything crazy. And people are very optimistic on the skill sets of DL Hall. Some very smart people like Nick Pollock and I think Eno might be, and a couple other really good pitching people like DL Hall's skill set quite a bit. So do you take the I don't know if it's risk gamble on the health of Nick Lodolo for the entire season, not just for this short term? Or do you go after the upside of DL Hall on a team where there's really no one else to take his roster spot?
Lodolo. I just don't know about and at this point in the draft, you're not really depending on any of these guys for a full season. So I get that. But DL Hall threw 55 innings last year. He threw less than 100 in 2022. I just don't know how long he can go, which again might be fine. Maybe you get good DL Hall for
Nick Lodolo threw 34 innings last year. Are we doing this?
You are correct. did throw 103 the year before. But, Nick Lodolo presumably has thrown more innings in his career than DL Hall. The knob says Hall in the chat. Maybe I'm just too low. Maybe I'm too high on Lodolo. But
there was a lot of people early on. Knob, Scott, they were all even before we started the show. Hall. They saw the board. And
so 49 innings in AAA last year for Hall. 49 innings, 30 walks. in AAA the season before, 76 innings, 49 walks. For someone who doesn't have a lot of workload history and walks a ton of guys, like it's just hard for me to see him pitching deep into games, getting wins, and even pitching well in the second half of the season. That's my biggest thing.
And that's totally fine. I'm not gonna argue it up and down because I have 0 shares of either. I was just more curious for the discussion point because as the chat has shown, DL Hall's a very popular name out there. And I'm very curious to see how that goes. Like Lodolo, again, if healthy, he's not even going to be in this discussion pretty soon. So that kind of negates a lot of this. But I guess I'm just intrigued. Again, people are probably annoyed by the end of the show because I'm going to say it a lot probably is at this point in the draft, this is where you start taking your chances. So do you think DL Hall can go and throw you we saw the Brewers have no problem escalating in innings pitched. They've shown no issue with that. With Freddie Peralta and other guys in the past, they will throw them. Is it smart? Who knows? But look at the Brewers. They have no choices. Lodolo on the flip side, no Great American Small. They has Great American Small Park. Is he healthy? So I don't know. It's Lodolo if healthy. There's pretty much no debate there. But it's interesting, to say the least.
And I think if you're taking a chance, I would rather go. I did look at the outline. He is not listed. So not make the same mistake twice. If you did want to take a chance, there is Louis Varland going 10 picks later than Montas and Lodolo, who I think is just a fantastic dart throw. So there is that too.
With you as well. So fun options here. And I guess it also goes to the point of the depth of optionable starting pitchers in this range. Yep. There's a lot of, it's like I say on a lot of time is I won't argue your point because on certain players, just because where you're going, everyone's got a valid argument in this range almost. You can have an argument of almost all the players for the most part. I'll tell you you're wrong when you're wrong, but it might be me being wrong in the end too. All right, enough of me talking. Let's talk targets here. Wait a minute before we talk targets. The Knob's got a good one because I was thinking this name. The real question is DL Hall or Aaron Ashby.
Yeah. Aaron Ashby is alive. Good. Is alive and well in pitching.
Yep.
No idea how long he will go, but
if we're going to talk
Aaron Ashby could be like I do wonder what his ADP. He's not in this tier.
No, he'll be in the next tier. He will be in the next tier. He should be in the next tier. I have ADP up from a previous show. I can tell you right now. Over the last week, ADP of 357.
Oh yeah, you're
so
right.
He'll be next week.
Yep, you can grab both. The Knob.
Yep, the Knob. You can get after it with both of them. Is what you can do, and then drop which one doesn't work out or both. All right, targets. Boom. What do you got?
First target for me is Jorge Polanco, someone who I haven't heard be talked about that much. I almost feel like, and maybe this is just my perception of Jorge Polanco, he's just like this old dude who has just been hurt and you can't really trust him. I think half of that's maybe true. Like the injuries are a thing, and it's been recurring stuff, like recurring leg injuries for Jorge Polanco. Only 378 plate appearances last season combined, only 4 between minors and majors, only 445 the season before. But Jorge Polanco isn't that old. It's just Jorge Polanco's age 30 season. Again, maybe that's just my mixed conception of him, but I feel like he's just one of those older guys, and he's not. So yes, you're banking on the health here for Jorge Polanco, but from all indications that I've seen out of Mariners camp, he is healthy at this moment and hitting and hitting well in the spring, which does not change my outlook on Polanco at all, but it's good to see him healthy. This is somebody who 2 years ago hit 33 home runs with 11 steals and hit 269 with Minnesota. Will be hitting third or fourth in Seattle's lineup, right behind J-Rod. So I like the front half of that lineup. And again, the price is super cheap. If you're going to wait on second base, I think Jorge Polanco is a pretty good option who's not going to really hurt you anywhere. He's projected for 6 steals, 21 homers, and 244 batting average. At this point in the draft, that's really not going to hurt you anywhere. And I think there's upside on that. There's a higher ceiling if he can hold it together health-wise, if Polanco can for most of the season.
Yeah, if he can hold it together health-wise, obviously seems like a very, very good pick. it's hard to find this kind of power from the middle infield as late in the draft, which is big.
Yep.
You mentioned his spot in the order in Seattle, pretty good offense. There's a lot of good things to point out with Polanco. If healthy, could work out very, very well. So don't have a whole lot more to add to that. It's just I think it's like you mentioned the burnout early on. It was last year. I know even in one of my 12s, I didn't draft him, but I remember adding and dropping him at least twice. Coming back from injuries, getting injured back and forth.
And isn't that like frustrating as hell? Though it's like, and that's what it all was. It was last year was the knee, 2 hamstrings. Like it's just that like weekly. Ugh.
Yeah. So. And so I get the kind of just fatigue with Polanco, but the skills are there, like you're saying. So it's good to point out for sure. All right, to the Rizzo, Anthony Rizzo. We talked about him earlier.
Oh God, we already talked about him too.
But just for I could not. I have too many shares to leave him off. I saw the debate. I'm like, I got to put him here. He's a target. Like this is what the section is. So I'll just mention it for those that maybe forgot it before. He hit 244 last year with 12 home runs on the entire season. Okay, he played all the way till August 1st. Okay. He got concussed around May 28th because he took a few days off before coming back. Remember, he played with this concussion until August 1st. But up till May 28th, Rizzo hit 304 with 11 of his 12 home runs on the season. That's pretty good, folks. Basically, 2 months of the season, 11 homers, 304 average. 4 more months to go. I know you can't just pencil out numbers. Let's say he hits 15 more home runs, not 22. So now we're talking a 25-plus home run guy, probably hits 280-plus, drives in a handful of runs. Runs and RBIs, we're probably talking closer to the 170-ish range, 180. That's a very, very good first baseman, corner infielder at this ADP. I still am having a hard time. Like, we've been pointing this guy out, Ryan, since God knows when, it feels like, ever since we started drafting. And somehow his ADP is not really moving. It's very like, what are we missing is what I want to know in this whole scenario. But I'm willing, I've said it before, I'm willing to take the chance at ADP 255 on a guy that used to be a top 150 first baseman pretty easily in drafts.
We're not the market movers we think we are.
We're the comedic relief. We're not the market movers. That is correct.
Which is fine. We'll get our
I prefer the comedic relief.
Yeah. Better for us.
Yep. All right. I know you love this guy, so who's your next one here?
Yeah, it's Max Kepler. So I have talked about him a few times, I think, throughout draft season. Definitely have drafted him a ton if you need late outfield. The projection on Max Kepler, I think, is pretty tame. This is ATC projections of 247 batting average, 20 homers, and 4 steals. I don't know how many plate appearances that's over. Max Kepler had a 12% barrel rate last year, like great power metrics in the forecaster. 24 homers last season and less than 500 plate appearances. And Baseball HQ's expected homer, which is all based on Statcast, was a exact match, 24 expected home runs. I think there's upper 20s power with Max Kepler, not the 20 that's being projected. I think it'll come with a batting average that won't hurt either. And I think Max Kepler, if he can stay healthy, again, every one of these hitters is going to have warts. It's health with Kepler. I think the lineup spot's safe in Minnesota. Like, I think he's playing both against both lefties and righties. He was league average against lefties last season, and he kind of crushed righties last season. Kepler did. So I think everything's there for Max Kepler to, I don't know, hit like 250. 260 with upwards of 30 home runs if things break well at a 273 ADP. Like that's awesome, man.
Yep. I have really no argument there. I think we joked about it on one of the streams. He's just every year he's in this ADP every year. And it makes no sense. Like, he leads off a lot of the time and we probably won't lead off right now with Julian and company, but for years he led off. He's great OBP skills. He's like a Deadpool home run guy. If he doesn't pull the ball, he's not going yard. That's been one of his quote unquote bugaboos, but still, it's not really a bugaboo to me at this ADP. And I'm with you. We've seen him hit over 30 home runs before. He's done it before. I think that might have been the bouncy ball year off the top of my head.
It was, 36 homers in 2019.
But he's done it, and he's hit 20 plus pretty regularly when he's logged healthy long enough. So yeah, I'm with you on that. Fifth outfielder, pretty sweet. Even a util guy if you need to at that point in the draft.
He's one of those. I did a Bloomboard on this. I don't know if he was on it or not or what, but yeah, you mentioned like the every year aspect with Kepler. Like, what does Max Kepler have to do to go up in ADP? I mean, if he was going this late in drafts last year, he's coming off a 260 season with 24 homers in a partial season. Like,
that's pretty awesome. I guess that's
what
who
else
he
does he
is.
need to do to move up?
He's proven who he is. I guess, again, this shouldn't affect his ADP because, again, this is a ridiculously low ADP. The last couple of years, he's always been rumored in trades, never gets traded. So you just deal with that when it happens. Like, who cares? But as long as he's playing for the Twins, there's a lot of value here in that one. All right, here you go. You're welcome, everybody.
Adam.
Luis Rengifo.
Yep.
Luis Rengifo.
Alex asked about
Alex asked, and you ask and you shall receive on Bubba the Bloom. Is got a good chance I'll talk about catchers, Luis Rengifo, somebody in my realm of my guys, as Bloomfield says. So, yeah, here you go. Most of you have heard this before, but like one of the concerns why his ADP was down here, he's coming off an injury. Well, he started playing in Cactus Leagues games as expected, like we've talked about before. Going to be 27 years old, hit 16 homers, 6 steals, 264 last year. And one thing we discussed, and this is where I opened Ryan's eyes up to him on one of our shows, is he finished the year on an absolute banger. July hit 315, 6 home runs. August 327, 4 home runs. September 360, 2 home runs. He only played in 6 games in September. That's when he got hurt, but he basically played 20 plus games in July and August. He played a total of 49. His second half splits were just astronomically good. He's got massive multi-position eligibility. He plays on every infield position plus the outfield, which is just ridiculous. He's going to lead off versus lefties. He's going to hit towards the bottom there versus righties. But you know what that is? That's playing every single day, which is great, especially this ADP. And it's the projections aren't factoring that in. Like all the projection sites have him give or take around 125 to 130-ish. And they have him for like 15 home runs. Steamer had him for 17, which is pretty nice. But like the Bat has him, Bat X 16 homers, 12 steals, 250 average in 133 games. Barring injury, he's playing in 150 plus. And now you're talking about a potential 2015 dude hitting at the top of the order. Like, let's just say Trout stays healthy, by God. Like, that could help out with run production. We talked about Taylor Ward, who I think both of us are pretty much, getting back on board with. It's not, Otani's not there. It's not a world beater lineup, but the top half's still good enough. So when he is towards the top of the order, it could be nice, or he flips it over at the bottom. There's just a lot to like for me. And that flexibility, if you're drafting and you're looking for a CI, a fifth outfielder, and hopefully it's an MI, that's where he fits perfect in my mind. Like, he just does so much for your roster. In 15s, he's very valuable to me. In 12s, he still brings tons of value. Yeah, I'm a fan. When you get like a potential 2015 guy with a 250 plus batting average, like that's pretty darn good at this point of the draft. And right now his ADP is sitting at 269, which is quite nice. So yeah, big fan of Luis Rengifo. And if you're a regular listener, you already know that.
Yeah, I got nothing to add other than, I'm just going to put an even greater emphasis on the multi-position eligibility. It's not just multi-position eligibility. It's freaking middle, corner, outfield. Like, it's everything. And that is so huge. Like, that's not just third base outfield or second short. This is like a whole nother level of usefulness on any kind of roster. Injuries are going to come up. To be able to plug Rengifo in pretty much everywhere except for first base is like such a
it's almost like a wild card, like a unicorn thing.
Thank you for
free
completing
square.
my sentence. I froze mid-sentence.
I know. I was trying to help you while you're going. I was throwing out options for you.
Yeah.
Well, the last thing I guess I'll mention with him, and especially in 12s where Ryan's going to start dabbling back into it, I think, this year. And I always joke about the waiver wire. There's always so many options. But you have your roster, since there's so many options, usually your bench has okay options. And so you're looking for like a specific position to fill. And so you have to find that position on the waiver wire. With Rengifo, as Ryan said, you can move Rengifo to the hole and take whatever else you need at a different position if like a better quote-unquote option arises on the waiver wire. Mm-hmm. So it just does so many things to your team, not just for setting your roster, but gives you the flexibility on your bench, on the waiver wire. Just you can do a million things, which big fan of his. If he flops, I'm going to be very disappointed. At this ADP, you can't be like mad, but I'd be disappointed because there's like on paper looks like such upside here.
Another guy who maybe I'm just messed up. Like I feel like Rengifo is like 32, 33 years old.
He's young.
He's only 27.
Yeah, he's young.
I don't know.
Very. I'm with you though. I remember when we first.
Do you think he's old, or is that just is it me getting old?
No, when we first dug in, it felt like he'd been like this weird utility dude forever. And
right.
He's just not. That's the other reason why I like him. Like he might be finding his prime. The way he started hitting last year before he got hurt, that might just be a young player starting to get comfortable playing every day. So I'm optimistic.
All right. Next target. We're gonna flip over to pitchers.
Yep.
Jon Gray. Jon Gray actually we think of Jon Gray as like a ratio killer who always gets hurt. He was a ratio killer at times with Colorado, but has a ERA under 4 over his 2 seasons in Texas. And Jon Gray did throw 157 innings last year for the World Series champion Texas Rangers. I did a Bloom board the other day looking at whiffs and strikes. So your swinging strike rate and your ball rate. And there were 14 pitchers who had better ball and whiff rates than league average going outside the top 150. And Jon Gray is there with a near 13% swinging strike rate and a 34% ball rate. Those are the two. League average on those is 12% and 36% respectively. Those are the two metrics like per pitch. If I'm not going to use K to walk, those are the two metrics I always look at for starting pitchers. And Jon Gray checks both of those boxes. Plus you add, again, he could go, if he just did what he did last year, throw 160 innings on a team that should give him plenty of run support. I don't know about the bullpen in Texas. I think this is actually like a pretty well-rounded high floor starter if you're in a deeper format, or you want some, maybe you took some shots on like a Tyler Glasnow earlier in drafts and you need some stability at the end. I think Jon Gray's a fine pick this late.
So do you have Jon Gray on your team then, where you took Tyler Glasnow?
I probably did.
I'm just joking. I just had to mention that you have Tyler Glasnow on a team.
I know. That's why I did it.
Pretty excited about it.
2 teams. I took him in TGFBI.
Look at you. I'm like a proud papa.
What I'm doing. Hanging out with you too much.
It's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. All right. My next guy is going to be Griffin Canning. I know it's a popular name this late, but he's still this late, which is fun to see. And he's one of those young pitchers that we saw some nice development with. Is what I'll say. He's 27 right now. That's a plus. But his months of July and August were electric when he returned to the bigs. He racked up a 26 and almost a 28% K to walk. Fell back a bit in September and October, which, it happens. I'm not going to hold that completely against him. But we saw some pitch mix changes with Griffin Canning, which was very nice as well. I'm trying to pull up some charts here from pitcherlist.com because their player pages, like, you have more stuff than you know what to do with on these pages.
Well, while you do that, I'll throw out there. So I mentioned the Bloom board that I look at with swinging strike and ball rate, those 14 starters. Guess what? Griffin Canning's on the list. Near 14% swinging strike and a 35% ball rate. So he definitely passes those 2 tests as well, along with Jon Gray.
And what I love to see about him is it's kind of like Tanner Bybee. I made fun of his horrific fastball and he throws it too much. Well, Griffin Canning's got an okay fastball, not great by any means, but he only throws it 34% because he throws a slider 29%, a changeup 20%, a curveball 13%. And that slider development, I think, is one of the big parts that kind of took off in the second half for him with his other pitches. And I think there's a whole other level to this. It's kind of what we wanted Reed Detmers to be. Canning kind of ran with it more, it feels like. And Canning was also a guy that was battling injuries, I think, 2 years ago, and he kind of started getting healthy this past year. Yeah. So I am all in. I have a lot of Griffin Canning shares because he is one of the late round pitchers that I'm very willing to take a chance on to take that next step this year.
He's interesting, and this is a case not just for Canning, but for just other pitchers out there. You mentioned the injuries, Bubba, with Canning. Did not throw a single inning in 2022.
Yeah.
And then threw 127 last year. Like, it is
wow.
possible.
DL Hall could do that?
Nick Lodolo could do that. Nick Lodolo could do that. It is possible. Not only with Canning, like, did he get to 127? Like, the skills were actually better in the second half. So it wasn't like he just kind of withered away at the end. So, yes, that's a feather in the cap for Mr. Lodolo as well.
There you go. Yes, let's not forget Mr. Lodolo on this one. All right, I like your next guy here. So who's your next guy too?
Am I adding DL Hall versus Lodolo on the bet sheet?
No, because I'm adamant that if Lodolo's healthy, he's at least 100 picks higher. This isn't the same discussion point.
Yeah,
like you can admit that too. I think.
Yes, I think so. This entire episode is with strings attached.
Well, that's what happens when we get late in ADP. They all have warts for a reason. That's why
exactly. We probably should have said that at the top. Yes, we like these guys, but we know.
Look at a hitter we didn't even talk about. JD Martinez is there. If he is signed and guaranteed a DH spot, he's not going in this range.
Yeah.
Bottom line, it's just not happening. Yeah. So it's just where you can take your chances. That's the whole point of this section.
All right. Where the hell are we? My next guy.
MacKenzie
Gore. Oh, I had a thing all queued up for him. All right. So MacKenzie Gore. Yes, there are issues, and specifically the walk rate. Like, that needs to be cleaned up quite a bit. And the health. So, like, a career high 136 innings last year for MacKenzie Gore. 10% walk rate last season, 8% expected walk rate, which would be league average. So MacKenzie Gore throws more strikes than you would think given the walk rate. But I think the stuff is electric. MacKenzie Gore is one of I'm going to have to make up the stat, aren't I? No, here we go. MacKenzie Gore is one of 7 starting pitchers with a elite swinging strike rate on multiple pitches last year. So this group is Luis Castillo and Blake Snell had 3 each with swinging strikes of over 17%, which is really good. You've got Glasnow, Logan Gilbert, Jesus Luzardo, RIP Kyle Bradish, all of those guys going in the top 100. MacKenzie Gore is your 7th name with the slider and the curveball going at an ADP of almost 300. So actually that's interesting. When I made the tweet in late January, MacKenzie Gore's ADP was 293, and now it's 257. So that's notable. But I just think MacKenzie Gore, like, if you're taking shots at this stage of the draft, 25 years old, with the prospect pedigree, MacKenzie Gore is one of the best pitching prospects in baseball, and starting to show those skills, at least the strikeout skills in the major league level. Like, I think there are pieces here where the ceiling is quite high with MacKenzie Gore. So I took a shot on him in Tout Wars and felt pretty good about it. I forget what round, but pretty late. So
yeah, the Gore thing is fun because, you mentioned the pedigree. He came with CJ Abrams in the Juan Soto trade. Pretty sure he was a part of that one. There's a lot to like with MacKenzie Gore. The walks are the big concern with him, and those were he had double-digit walk rates most months last year. That's kind of what held him back a bit, and he only made 1 outing, 4 innings or so in September because they wanted to shut him down. They had a hard innings limit on him because he's so young, and the Nats knew they want him long-term type thing. He could be a guy. I wouldn't be shocked if he gets an extension at some point, like the Red Sox did with Bayo type thing. Look, Gore, he's worth that, and the Nats need to get people on the cheap. To fantasy purposes, though, I guess I'll say this: why not? If he can improve the walks, he could be that Robbie Ray type guy.
Oh, I like it.
Because his strikeouts are that good.
Yep.
If he could improve the walks, the wins will never be there in Washington. You just accept that now. But if he could throw 140, 150 innings, which I think 150 is pretty much could do it with the way they kind of babied him towards the end, they're progressing him in those directions, maybe even more. Who knows? But if he can cut back the walks, now you're talking probably 6 innings to start with a pretty decent ERA and a ton of strikeouts, because his strikeouts are always over 10% or over 20%, creeping on 25% or higher at times. That's legit stuff. So if he can cut back on the walks, this could be one of those Robbie Ray type guys, I think. And that could be a lot of fun at this point in the draft. So,
all right, man. Your last target's a fade for me, so you're gonna have to You're gonna have to sell me on this.
This is more kind of like my Kyle Harrison one from last episode, where it's with Jordan Hicks. Is I was full fade when the Giants got him at first because I'm like, how are they going to work him? 2 innings here, 3 innings, build him up, and then next thing you know, it's kaput. No, they're stretching him out the gate, and they need pitchers. They're already working on him instead of throwing 100. Like, let's work on consistently throwing 95 to 96 to keep your arm strength up. He still has filthy stuff. There aren't a whole lot of pitchers back in this range. Now, we talked about Gore, Canning. Like, there are some. I'm not going to say there's not a bunch, but Hicks is an elite strikeout arm, even if he's not throwing 100. He's got a heavy sinker with Matt Chapman now at third base. That like the Giants' infield defense has gotten better. Ahmed looks like he might actually take Luciano's job at short. If you put Ahmed and Chapman, 2 Gold Glovers on that side of the infield, that'll help Hicks out a ton as well when the sinker's in play. So I think there's just more upside than I think originally given to Jordan Hicks when he came to the Giants as kind of this like, oh, he should be a bullpen guy. Now he's getting stretched out, where as they're stretching him out properly, I think there's a lot more legs to this. Now, wins will be tough because he probably won't go over 5 innings often. I will completely admit that part. But again, we're talking close to a 300 ADP. So I've been taking a few more dart throws on Jordan Hicks just for massive strikeout upside. Again, in 12s, if he starts hitting innings cap, things go wrong, easy drop. But I think there is a pretty nice, I don't know if ceiling is the right word, because I don't know if you'll ever get to a ceiling, but like a nice second story in the house type situation with Jordan Hicks that I take a gamble on.
Dude, I was almost going to correct you. You said Ahmed. I was like, dude, Ahmed Rosario signed with
Nick
Tampa
Ahmed.
Bay. I did not know Nick Ahmed might be your starting shortstop.
They want the defense there because of this pitching they're starting to put together. Like, think about Alex Cobb with a good defense.
Yeah,
like all the problems.
Right.
Like
it's I just didn't even know he was on the Giants.
They
like,
just did it the other day
this?
on a minor league deal, but they're playing him a ton, and the rumors are swirling because Luciano's not showing the development they were hoping for just yet. So,
dude, how old is Nick Ahmed?
Old enough.
Not that old. No, he's 30. He's almost 34 years old.
He's old for baseball standards. He's getting up there.
But that's interesting though. That would boost Cobb and Logan Webb's value as well.
Again, not elite by any means, but it's one of those late target. I love strikeouts. I say it all the time. And out of all these guys, like, if you want like strikeout ceiling, Hicks might have the strikeout ceiling. So if he can put it together, we'll see. But again, 5 innings, do you hit the ceiling? A million questions. I get it, but someone to point out.
And not to sound too repetitive, but I said this earlier, but like, you're probably not getting a full season from many of these guys. If you can get 2-3 months of a good Jordan Hicks before he burns out or whatever, if that happens, like you have won with that pick.
That's what I'm saying. As in a 12-team league, he's beautiful. Like, you just sit there, you drop him the second things go south, you don't think twice about it, and you just move on, and you're happy as can be. Like, you just take advantage of it while you can.
All right, no longer full fade.
You're welcome.
Partial.
Speaking of fades, we have a lot of listener questions, so let's fly through each of our 2 fades real quick here.
Yeah. Fly through as I forget who it is. Gavin Lux.
An easy fade,
I thought Gavin Lux would get like plenty of run, and it sounded like he would, and a chance to live up to that prospect pedigree. It sounds like that's not going to happen. The way Gavin Lux has looked so far this spring. He cannot. I don't know if you saw the Yamamoto highlights.
It's bad. Really
There
bad.
was this video of like, here's Yamamoto, because Yamamoto, like, if you look at the box score, kind of got lit up. But then there was a video of like, here were 5 of the 6 hits, and they were like all infield singles. But like, I think 4 of those 5 were Gavin Lux not being able to make a throw from shortstop to first base. So like,
bad.
Gavin Lux is actually, that is a spring training note where I look and I'm like, I'm going to take a shot elsewhere.
Yep. Yeah, I was interested in Lux, like, even before spring training, is because he's coming back cheap. But seeing they want to platoon him with Rojas at shortstop, and now the Willie Adames trade rumors are starting to swirl again. And yeah, Uncle Ted nailed it. Gavin sucks. My first fade will be Shea Bangaliers, as they say in Oakland, because he hits a ton of home runs. I'll give him that. He's kind of Mike Zunino-esque, and who just retired, I believe yesterday on Wednesday.
Yep.
So Langoliers is good in that regard if you don't mind a 205 batting average and a ton of homers, which already had me off of him. But the latest rumors coming out of camp, and I believe it, is they're going to platoon him with Tyler Soderstrom. It's going to be like a strict platoon lefty-righty situation. Soderstrom is a top draft pick who has a ton of pop as well. He's originally a catcher. They tried to play him at first base. It wasn't working. So they're going to incorporate him back into catchers, and they want to platoon these two guys. And if that does happen, Langler's has zero value for me with that batting average. So just want to point that out at this point in the draft.
My last fade is Shane Baz. If you're in an IL league, you can stash him there and maybe see how the second half turns out. But if you're in a league that doesn't have IL slots, I think you're just kind of wasting a spot on a reserve stash that you're gonna need that spot a couple months in. Shane Baz, there have been the news has not been good, and I don't know what you're getting out of him in the first half. You can't use someone in the first half effectively. Why is he on your team?
Yeah, real quick, the knob. Hey, the stadium graphic at Langler Stadium.
Yes,
that graphic was amazing. All those guys. Oh my god,
Brent Rooker. He tweeted about it because they had Brent Rooker hitting like 304, and this is a stadium that, as it looks in the rendering, will never look like that.
No.
But this is like 5 years in advance. So Brent Rooker was really funny when he tweeted
like all these players will sleep on the A's. Really, like there was just so many things to it that were hilarious. And by the way, Brent Rooker, we've said it on the show before. Great Twitter follow. Like just go. Him, Trevor May, those guys that played for the A's. They're embracing the "we hate the A's" thing really well.
Fellow Hokie, Virginia Tech grad, Brent Rooker.
Oh, there you go. I got to throw that out there when you can. Michael Walker will be my final fade. Boring, might get you 5 innings, not a lot of strikeouts, whatever. But with all the other pitchers we talked about in this range that you can take a chance on upside, why are we drafting Michael Walker? It's that simple to me.
Agreed. You want to take a shot on a ceiling guy, and the ceiling is the basement.
Pretty much,
which
you would know about. Yeah. So, all right. Listener questions, because you guys crushed it tonight, which is great to see. We'll start with Adam Reckamp. If you're looking for value, I really like Zach Neto. Angels running more in spring with Ron Washington at the helm. Thoughts on his value at 288? I love Zach Neto.
Took him in Tout Wars.
Yep.
So, despite the OBP drain, I think it's a legit power speed combo. And the last thing I'll just touch on is I do think spring training stolen base aggressiveness matters. Jason Collette did a thing on this at first pitch last season to kind of try and predict what the league-wide stolen base uptick would be last year, and it was pretty spot on. And Baseball HQ has done some research on this as well, older research, but still holds true that I'm actually pretty bullish on the Angels running. Not the Angels, but the Angels running.
Luis Rengifo, 20 stolen bases.
There's another Rengifo. It all comes back. Like this dude should be our freaking logo.
Taylor Ward. Like we just got these Angels just coming alive. And I will also mention, because you kind of said there's I remember Colette's work on that and everything was really good, is we make fun of a lot of managers for this, that, and the other. But the two things they basically have major control over, I guess 3 things: setting the lineup, pulling pitching, and running game. Those are the 3 things they pretty much have a major impact on. So when a new manager comes to town, it's a good call. It's something worth looking into on how the team's philosophy may change type situation.
And Trout. Ron Washington inferred that Trout will run more in an interview that I was watching.
Let's not run. Just make sure he can run from.
It was interesting. They said Trout has spent so much time trying not to get injured when he plays that he gets injured.
I could see that.
Let him loose. That's what Washington said. Whatever. I don't know, but it was interesting.
I could see that. They used to say that about Bryce Harper all the time. They said, just let the man play. Let him run into walls, because when you start telling him to be timid, he was getting hurt more often, trying to slow down or do this or do that. It's just let him be, I guess. I don't know. Who knows? Yeah. BP at Futures Bet says, do you guys think Sal Frelick can be this year's Spencer Steer with less homers and more steals, with eligibility all over the place? I do. If they really continue to play this, third base Southern game, I'm with you on that one.
Agreed. I like what we saw from Sal Frelick in terms of the contact and the speed. We'll see about the power, but yeah, the thing is playing time. But again, that's what you take a spec on this late is it's either Frelick or Garrett Mitchell, I believe, for that third spot in the Brewers outfield. If Frelick wins the job, he's in. Great. If he doesn't,
no, it's not even that. It's not even that, man. Frelick's playing almost every day at third base right now.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you're right.
That's where I think the
good
Spencer
call. He is
Steer thing. He's
playing
already got
everywhere.
the outfield. Now he's going to get third base, and they're
Yeah.
practicing him at second base also. So like he could end up being. That's where the Spencer Steer thing comes in. It's then it maybe corner, middle, outfield, all over the place again.
Yep.
It's a fun little button to
And
push at
if
around
you're an
280.
organization trying to find ways to put someone's bat in the lineup, I think fantasy leaguers should probably take that as a hint.
100%. And the thing with the Brewers, we mentioned it even last year with Weimer and Frelick and Mitchell, and now you have Chiriot up there. They have a ton of young talent, but they're all in one position basically, or three technically. So they're going to try to mix in, like you said. So the fact they made a point this offseason for Frelick to work with Pedroia for second and third base, now they're starting him at third base nearly every game. Yeah. That stands out in a big way for me.
Good call.
Richard Sands, how do you feel about Jonathan India going post 300? I had a chance to take him at 330 in a 15-team NFBC draft and took Cronenworth instead. Nothing great, not as talented perhaps, but at least we know he has a job. India went a few picks later.
Yeah, I think maybe the cop-out answer is Cronenworth in a deep league, like a 15-teamer. In a 12-teamer, I'd go with India because I do think if India is healthy and he's making his way back, the kind of per-game production from India will be, I think, much better than from Cronenworth. It's still tough, though. Like, even if India's healthy, how many games per week does he play with how many guys are in Cincinnati? It's just it's a tough deal.
Yeah, that's where you said the per game production. I agree, but how many games does the production take place is the question.
But if you're like in a daily league, it's great. But yeah, weekly, it's just are you going to, even if he's healthy, is India going to play more than 3-4 games a week? I don't know, but
100%. And I joked about Cronenworth because they basically want to hit him like third in a pretty good top half of a Padres lineup. It's like,
what did Sammy Reed call Jake Cronenworth?
Oh, I don't even remember right now. It wasn't good. He's not a Cronenworth fan. Let's put it that way. I might have to go back and listen now, but hitting him third, it's just like at that ADP. You look at least in 15s where you just want at bats. That's interesting. Like it's tough, but it's interesting. Ben Tidd says, "I am stunned that Stanton is going ahead of Kepler." I think we all are.
What? Me too. That's crazy. Where's Stanton going?
He's on the list right there. He's going
264. He's on my list.
Right in front of
That's
Rengifo.
wild.
He's in front of Rengifo. What are we doing here?
What are we doing?
Brant Chesser, Baseball HQ, says, when looking at Sal Frelick or Colt Keith, which do you prefer? I lean Frelick, but I think Keith's got the more stranglehold on a job right now.
Yeah, I kind of like both of them, to be honest, because Keith or country star Colt Keith are going to get two positions. You're going to get second and third.
Yep.
I like them both. If I had to pick one, I don't know. Probably Keith, but that's tough.
Yeah, it's probably Keith for now, but I think, man, if I knew Frelick had the job starting opening day, I'd have Frelick. It's just one of those things right now. So at this point in time, I'm with you on Keith. Taylor Johnson says, who is the one pitcher and one hitter from the 250 plus ADP that you think will be a top 100 pick this time next year?
God, I will go just to kind of mention some names we haven't mentioned. I will say Vaughn Grissom. I know he's hurt, but like if Vaughn Grissom maybe just misses a week or whatever, I think Vaughn Grissom could be a top 100 player. He's being drafted as a top 100 player this time last year. And then I'll throw out Mr. One Skill Away, Edward Cabrera. If he can just get that walk rate under control, Edward Cabrera is a top 100 player. Big if, but that's why they're going late.
Yeah, for me, man, I guess I'll stick with my Griffin Canning, but in reality, if I think Gore is the next Robbie Ray, it's MacKenzie Gore. He was a top 100 guy.
You like Sheehan, don't you?
I do not. I do not like Sheehan. No.
Oh. Weren't you trying to draft him at tout?
I don't think so.
Or am I just completely?
I think you're just talking trash now.
For anyone who sticks around to the pod after the first hour, I just start making shit up. So.
I'm kidding. I might have, but I'm pretty sure I didn't. I think the only I may have just for the fact he was falling so much in the tout draft. And he had an IL designation, I believe, to start the season, but that'd be about it. Hitting wise, I like your call, Vaughn Grissom. That's probably the go-to. If I'm going to give you somebody different, I'll say Matt Chapman because he figured it out at third base. It's a big if.
I like it.
All right. Britton Allen. There's a long thread to this. I'm not going to read all those off. But Britton Allen, good evening. Let's say a friend of mine is in round 18 of a TGFBI draft and needs an outfielder. Who do you like the best of these available? Brian De La Cruz, Nelson Velasquez, Jose Siri, MJ Melendez. Appreciate it. Have a great show.
De La Cruz, if you're low on batting average. If you have a batting average cushion, I'd go Jose Siri.
I go De La Cruz unless you need some massive power. Then give me Nelson Velasquez.
Adam in the chat, I just mentioned Edward Cabrera. No walk so far this spring for what it's worth, only 2 matchups, but encouraging. Throwing a ton of strikes too. Again, 2 matchups, but encouraging.
Very encouraging. Adam's got a question here on Twitter as well. Just saw he's not on the ADP sheet, but thought on Tyler Wells. He's going to get innings with the Bradish injury. Great ballpark for a fly ball pitcher. He can ditch the terrible cutter and throw a slider a lot. I'll just say I love Wells. We talked about it when it happened. He was very good. His stats were very, very good until he got shut down to go to AAA because he hit his innings limit and got tired. Came back in the bullpen and looked good. But for the first part of the year when he started, very, very formidable guy that I figured he'd be back in the rotation no matter what this year, and he wasn't, which kind of surprised me. So I'm optimistic on a late round dart on him.
Yep. Yeah, I know you've been high on Wells. I did want to make he is on there. That's good. 296 ADP.
Oh, okay. I missed him. Yeah. I think Wells is another one.
Mr. Whip and a great park and a good run support team.
There's just so many pitchers in this realm where you could just take your chances.
I know, man. Yeah. It's kind of fun with all these shows, like what we say at the top, and then we actually go through it all, and like I think we're still in that same boat. Like
there's at least half of these starting pitchers, I'd probably be like, okay, I could draft them and see where it goes. Like, I have no problem with it. Calling my shot, our buddy says Louis Varland seems like an interesting test case for how much to buy into spring training changes. His velo's up, pitch movement profiles and pitch mix tweaked, team with a strong track record of pitching development, and an injury ahead of him on the depth chart. Is he just good now?
I have not followed the spring's StatCast numbers or whatever on Varland, but that if the pitches have more velocity, more movement, that's obviously probably a good thing. I'm high on Louis Varland because of what he did last year, and I think the market's scared that Louis Varland is not going to start the season in the rotation, and that's why his ADP is at 296. I say don't worry about it. 6 starters always get a shot, usually pretty early, and like Tony DeSclafani. Come on, you kidding me? Yeah, Louis Varland's a really good pitcher and pitches for an organization that knows what they're doing for all these reasons. Louis Varland's an awesome buy.
Yep, great buy. And Louis Varland, what he did last year, he's been on a lot of your boards with certain categories. So, yeah, 100% on board with Louis V. Last question we have here is Ted Vinson says, would you rather have Parker Meadows or Will Benson?
Parker Meadows. I think Parker Meadows is going to play more. And I think Parker Meadows is actually pretty good and should get some run and should run. Like should get playing time and stolen bases.
Yeah, it's I'm going to say I'm with you on that just for the fact that Parker Meadows will pretty much play every day and hit towards the top of the Detroit lineup.
Right.
I think Will Benson's the better fantasy player if he were to. He's better in daily formats, let's put it that way. Because Benson will play pretty much every day versus right-handed pitching, but he'll sit versus lefties.
Yep.
And we've seen the stretches, the tears he can go on. He's a power speed guy. It's not just like a one-trick pony. He's a 5-category guy when he's playing, but he won't play enough potentially. So in a daily format, give me Will Benson all day long between the two. In a weekly format, give me Parker Meadows.
I like that. More nuance from your answer than mine, which is par for the course.
I just like to hear myself talk, I think. I'm used to hosting shows here. We get to be equals. It's kind of fun.
You get to actually
I get to show. I get to analyze a little bit here, so it's kind of fun. But all right. We will wrap it up there. Next Tuesday, coming at you with 300 plus. A little surprise for you guys on Thursday. We'll talk about probably next Tuesday. But final thoughts here, Bloomfield, as we wrap up another 80. This was actually, I don't know, it's hard to say because we've done a bunch already, but this one felt kind of fun compared to a couple others, just because, especially the pitching side of it, just so many more It seems like some of the other ones we've done is pretty like cut and dry what we like in certain spots.
Yeah.
Where this kind of felt like there was wiggle room to kind of navigate and be like, yeah, I can see the argument there. I can see like you could kind of open your eyes to certain spots.
We definitely spent more time on the pitching side this episode than previous. And again, this factors into my draft plan, knowing I probably can grab 3 starting pitchers here and maybe go 0 or 1 in the previous pocket where we both liked a bunch more hitters. There's a puzzle to all this and how it fits together, which I think is just as important, if not more important, than actual player evaluation itself. And we are planning to do just kind of a show preview. I think in a couple weeks.
Yes.
We're going to do 2 what we call, I guess, roadmap episodes, where we're either going to go position by position or round by round, or maybe some combo, and kind of try and map everything out in terms of like at a strategy type level where we like to go. Where we like to target and which positions categories we like to target. So I'm excited for that. We haven't done that before, but it's kind of going to be like a total kind of recap of all of these ADP pocket shows that we've been doing the last few weeks.
Yep, the Tuesday and Thursday, 19th and 21st is the plan for those 2.
That's right. You wrote that down in your stone tablet, didn't you?
That's why you guys make fun of me, but I got stuff right here. 19th and 21st before the last big draft week. I think it's right before Vegas and all those other ones. So our last kind of hurrah before, the season starts. We have a lot of fun in those regards. But we'll wrap it up there. As I said, you can make sure you follow Ryan on the Twitter at RyanBHQ, the podcast at Bubba Bloom Pod. I am at BD Intric, and this was Bubba and the Bloom, episode 115. Catch y'all next time.